All right, Shalom. First and foremost, before I begin this lesson, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rechak, Wadash. The honors go out to the apostles, as great millstone, rule and teach well. Shalom, Barakium to you brothers and sisters out there. All right, this is the brother Malachi from the Great Millstone Nashville camp. And Lord willing that this lesson is edifying to the hopeful elect. All right, I got the word up on the screen here for trouble. All right, because I was looking at this article, and it was talking about weather, that's coming up, basically this weekend, or like like the next week or so. I think for us, it's going to be over the weekend. Slacking, blowing my nose. But we were, well, we didn't really talk too much about it, but bros, basically put their input in like, damn, because that just came out of nowhere, because prophecies are really popping off, and in the midst of all that, we're going to see things that's very troubling, right? It's called the time of Jacob's trouble, right? There's going to be trouble round about us. And I was just, meditating, on what if this winter storm thing, what if it brings some blackouts? Not necessarily everywhere, but anywhere. If it happens in a major city or even a small city, I mean, what type of chaos could ensue? If people don't have heat for weeks, electronics down. Some people can't go an hour without their phone, let alone 3 days. Look, we're going to see just how insane and unhinged these people really are. Because the people that you see, they might be cool and kind and respectful, but that's because they have a job. Their family's healthy. They got a place to stay. They got a car. They got entertainment. They got the quick dopamine from, whatever. So they're not really seeing anything that's going on in the world. They're so, low level minded. Is really what it is. They're not worrying about the bigger picture, not worried about anything, right? They have no prudence. They have no fear of the Lord. They have nothing really spiritual going on to that degree in their lives. And imagine these type of people in a situation where those things are taken away from them. What does this man have? He has nothing. He lost everything he had, so he's going to lose his mind. He's going to lose his sanity. People, scriptures talk about how people are going to be, killing each other. Well, murdering, because killing is lawful. If somebody is trying to murder you and you take their life in self-defense, you killed them. But if they had put you to death, they would have murdered. That would have been murder. Murder is a sin. Which we don't tell anybody to do. Damn sure not murder, but not killing either. We're not a carnal group. We're spiritual, right? We understand that the Lord will take care of these things. The Ecclesiastes 3:1. There's a time and a place for everything. We're not in the times of being carnal. We're not in the times of picking up weapons. That was back during the Maccabees. Back during the time of King David. Back during different times throughout our history, but not now. Now it's time to fight spiritually, tap into the spiritual aspect, and we're just going to let the Lord take care of it and let his movie be played out the way he wants it to be played out, in his time, in his season, the way he wants it to be done. All right, but I got this word trouble. It says produce mental agitation or emotional turmoil. That's 2 Ezra 15 and 16 right there, right? Matter of fact, just to prove that, let's go ahead and get 2 Ezra 16. And verse 17 to 18. It says, woe is me, who will deliver me in those days? The beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the powers shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? So the prophet Ezra, he's seeing these events that's going on, obviously events now as well, but especially in the time of, as they call SHTF, hell breaking loose. And he's wondering who could deliver me from such, great judgment. Which he knows, the Lord, but it's just, because it's so much to, to see. It's crazy. But of course, Ezra, we believe he's a member of the elect. And he would be taken care of in these times. Just like all the other prophets and men of the Lord will, and all the elect, the 144,000, the 1/3, the remnant, they're all going to be taken care of. Not going to be destitute in the time of Jacob's trouble. They're going to be saved out of it. But it's still going to be troubling. It's still going to be troublesome. Still not going to be enjoyable. All right, but we will have comfort in the spirit, and that will keep us going. And the Lord will grant us balance. He's not going to put us in a situation that is too hard for us. All right, 1 Corinthians 10 and 13, I believe it is. It's becoming one of my favorite scriptures for sure. It's Salaki for that. All right, so the headline that's on Newsbreak, it says 300 million Americans, which is, like Joe pointed out, essentially the whole country. 300 million Americans brace for unheard of polar vortex after Arctic fence fails. It says forecasters are warning that virtually the entire United States is about to be engulfed in a deep freeze, as a distorted polar vortex appears to unleash Arctic air from the northern plains to the Gulf Coast. What had been a relatively tame start to winter is giving way to a pattern some experts describe as highly unusual in strength and reach, with hundreds of millions of Americans now staring down a stretch of cold that could feel unheard of after weeks of warmth. So, literally, the weather, because it's been crazy, it's basically kind of been like a fall, basically like an extended fall, but it's gotten warm. Certain days it's gotten kind of like a spring, but it hasn't been winter, It's been a lot warmer. There hasn't been no snow, nothing that's stuck, on the ground. And now all of a sudden out of nowhere, it's just going to be a snowstorm and extra cold. It's like, whoa, out of nowhere, which is also probably going to make a lot of people sick, which I just started to, feel, a little away this morning, under the weather. Or whatever it might be, I don't know. But regardless, we have that protection, which take care of your bodies. We gotta, speaking first and foremost myself, I gotta do better with diet, better with, herbs, getting that exercise, rest, sleep. Sleep is important. Don't overlook that. Don't get so into working out and diet that, you neglect sleep. Sleep, which some people have, sleeping issues, which, pray that, them brothers and sisters get healed of that, because that ain't no joke, but for those of us that are able to sleep, don't be up watching movies all night playing it, bro, get some sleep. Like, it really helps your mental space as well. And this truth is all about enduring unto the end. Let me actually go ahead and grab that. Matthew chapter 24 and verse 13, this in red, it says, well, actually, I'll get verse 12 first, because I was thinking about the scripture a little earlier. I might have quoted it. I don't remember. But Matthew 24 and 12, And because iniquity, and it's inbred because Yahushua spoke these words. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. So, like we were talking about, people aren't going to regard each other's feelings and family and possessions in the coming times, because it's going to get rougher and rougher out here, and people don't want to deal with uncomfortability. All right, verse 13. I'm going to go ahead and now close it out here. It says, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. So even though we're going to see these troubling times, like we quoted earlier, Jeremiah 30, it's the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. All right, it also talks about in the book of Isaiah how my servants shall eat. So the Lord is going to protect his men. Proverbs 18:10, Isaiah 33:6. All right, the Lord is going to provide for us. He's going to take care of us as he always has. There's going to be divine judgment, but there's also going to be divine deliverance, miracles. We're going to be good. All right, we just got to continue to fight and maintain our integrity. So, Lord willing that this lesson was edifying. Before I close, I want to give all praise to Yahweh B'Shem Al Shai, B'Ashem Rachak Wadash. The honors go out to the apostles, Great Millstone.